A quiet edge of night lingers over an ancient forest where the first hint of morning does not arrive as brightness, but as a soft loosening in the air. A subtle, warm haze that lies low along the roots, and the moss that warms without glare that folds itself into the muted dark of trunks and leaf shadows. The ground is patient, layered with years of fallen needles and tender soil, and the hush inside this place feels older than any voice. Bird calls have not yet gathered themselves into song. They are thoughts not yet spoken, still resting in the branches. In the undergrowth, dew rounds itself into small pearls, hardly glinting, more a suggestion of light than a point of it. Somewhere a thin creek sorts stones with its slow tongue, rearranging nothing and everything with the patience of water. Wood lies ready, not stacked, not claimed, only resting where wind and time carried, limbs laid down with the gentleness of surrender. The forest waits for the first slow movement, and waiting is its calm craft, a steady, unhurried holding of the world in dark hands. The ancient trees stand like pillars of a quiet hall, their bark heavy with the texture of seasons, their crowns shaping a ceiling stitched from branches and needles. There is space between the trunks that feels like a promise of shelter, a room made by time rather than design. The meadow is a rumor beyond the ridge, the sun a rumor beyond the meadow. And here, in the cool center, light does not strike. The air carries the round smell of damp wood, the earthy breath of bark after night, a hint of resin, a whisper of smoke from fires long gone. Every scent is softened, as if filtered through wool. The hush is the first companion, and it hums low, a bass note under everything, steady as so. Beneath this hush, a slow intention rises, not urgent, without angles, only the idea of gathering what the forest has already offered, not a story of effort, only the faint curve of purpose in a place that permits it. The ground, quilted with leaves and tiny threads of fungi, yields a little underweight, springing back without fuss. Stray twigs lie nested among fern stems, their ends pale where the bark has thinned, their bodies light with the dryness that morning loves. Fallen branches lean against stones streaked with lichen, their grain opened just enough to breathe. Everything carries a soft edge. Even the silhouettes are rounded by the dim. In this hour, wood is not yet an object. It is a texture of the forest, a continuation of trunk and root, a low chorus of shapes that the senses can listen to without needing to define. Over time, a gentle movement begins unspooling from the center like a thread. Nothing hurries. The forest, vast and unbothered, allows itself to be approached by a quiet rhythm, a rhythm that arrives with the day like fog arrives with water, indistinguishable from what is already here. The first placement of steps is careful, not from caution, but from respect for the soil's memory. Needles shift and settle, releasing a thin, papery sigh. A cone rolls and finds a hollow. A long twig unhooks from a shrub with a soft tick. Everything that sounds is small, and small sounds feel large in the muted dark. The intention is simple. Find what the forest has given, touch it gently, gather it into a loose bundle, carry it without strain. The forest responds with what it has always had, the ordinary abundance of a living place. The limbs on the ground curve like sleeping question marks, and the moss beneath them is cool and faintly damp, a cushion that keeps the wood from taking on the night's chill too deeply. The warm haze in the air remains, the kind that seems to rise from the very breath of the soil. A quiet, inner warmth that does not insist on being noticed. This is the hour when warmth is a feeling under the skin and darkness is a color behind the eyes, and both can be held at once. along the path that is not a path where repeated passing has only made the grass think twice about growing the trees open to a shallow fold in the land. There the ground smooths out and collects the gifts of wind. Twigs, small branches, a ribbon of bark to mellow half-moons of broken limbs. A place shaped like a bowl where gravity has done the first gathering. In this hollow, a hush deeper than the surrounding hush gathers as well. A pocket where the forest seems to exhale and hold. This is the beginning of a cave space, not stone-walled, not enclosed by rock, but sheltered by the way the land holds itself. A natural room made by slope and fallen trunk and the long needles that weave a gentle roof under the open sky. Here the muted dark feels thicker, softer, safer, as though the night decided to linger only a while longer and drape itself like a blanket. Settling into this space happens the way fog settles, without edges. Knees fold without sharpness. Hips sink. Weight meets ground with a welcome. The lower back finds its anchor, a curve that gives way into support. A soft receiving in the muscles along the spine. Warmth pools there. Not heat, but a steady ember of comfort that glows beneath thought. The forest's breath becomes the breath in this place. Slow and sure. A gentle drift breath that rises and lowers with the same ease that branches sway. All around, bark holds the night's moisture, and tiny droplets thread their way down grooves carved by seasons. A beetle rearranges grains of soil and then is still. A fern's frond keeps its posture, the same as yesterday, the same as tomorrow. There is nothing to solve here, only a deepening of presence, and entering into the room the forest made without walls. The first piece of wood is simply noticed, a slender length of fallen branch, light with age, smooth where bark has slipped away, its weight ready to be welcomed. Lifting is not an effort, but a continuation of noticing. The hands, if they could be seen, would be slow, but they do not need to be seen. What matters is the way the piece settles into a loose cradle, the way the body accommodates its shape without need for measure. Placed to the side, it rests across two other branches, forming a soft lattice that does not clatter, that accepts the muted dark as another layer of bedding. The second piece is close by, curved like a crescent, still holding a cushion of moss. It rises, it rests, it joins the first with the quiet of things that belong. The gathering begins to resemble a nest, shallow and open, meant for warmth rather than height. The forest approves in the way forests approve, by remaining itself, by offering more of the same abundance wherever attention drifts. Within this cave-like fold, time drips like sap, slow and steady, catching light that is more feeling than sight. The breath of the place deepens. Gentle drift in, gentle drift out. A coil of comfort tightens in the lower back, not constriction but an embrace, as if a wide hand made of warmth and moss had found the right place to rest. Vertebra, bivertebra. The spine settles into its kindly alignment, a tiny lengthening that feels like rain soaking into dry ground. The body, such as it is in this description, releases its insistence on shape. It becomes the shore to the breath's tide. Inhalations trace the curve of ribs as a finger might trace rings on a stump. Exhalations smooth the surface of thought like a flat stone, smoothing the surface of a pond. The world narrows to soft textures. Barks, shallow ridges, mosses, wet velvet, the faint powder of lichen on stone, the tender give of old wood ready to be carried. From day east, sunrise is approaching without the intention of brightness. It will arrive as a paler dark, a gentling of contours, a sighing open of spaces between shadows. The warm haze rises a touch, not to make anything sharp, but to give depth to the soft. Wood takes on shades of brown that are more like flavors than colors. Honeyed, nutty, bark deep. The pile grows by increments. A twig that only knows how to be dry. A stick whose end is frayed into threads. A branch with a hollow where a bird once fed. Each joins the nest of wood with a little rustle, a little hush of congratulations. Hands, or what acts in their place, dust off bits of bark that fall like wisps. Knees shift, the lower back remains anchored, supported by the ground's patient cushion. Breath keeps its drift, tied out, tied in. A loop that writes its own lullaby on the inside of the ribs. Beyond this sheltered hollow, the forest's vastness continues its unremarkable miracle. A snag holds court with the silence of a monarch that never needed to be seen. High beyond the canopy, the sky becomes a smoked glass, receptive, uninsistent. A small current of air passes through the trunks and leaves like a thought that arrives and fades. The does not chase it. It receives the curl of sound and lets it soften into the background hum. The wood being gathered remains at the center, not as a task to accomplish, but as a rhythm to attend. Choosing, lifting, laying down, pausing. The pauses are the longest, like wide meadows between small cottages. Into pauses the warm haze thickens in the belly. The lower back settles deeper. The breath drifts even more softly, as if it had forgotten the edges of in and out and only remembered swaying. The cave space holds. In it, the day feels far away and close at once, as if morning is willing to wait just outside the doorway until the gathering inside is complete. The muted dark is kindness, keeping colors folded, protecting the eyes from the crispness that wakes. Shadows remain whole, shapes remain generalized, and attention is free to rest on weight and texture instead of outline. One by one, pieces of wood are welcomed. There is no counting, no measuring, only a sense of enough that grows until it fills the body like warm water fills a basin. Enough is not a number. It is a sensation of rightness in the spine, a lengthening in the low muscles that support everything, a quiet in the jaw, a softening in the shoulders. Enough arrives and holds, and in its holding, the forest breathes with tenderness. Along the edges of the hollow, low shrubs bear the sheen of dew that refuses to glitter. The droplets prefer to be shy. They settle into the small hairs along the stems and stay there, almost part of the plant, briefly adopted. A spider's web nearby sags under its own delicate harvest, and even that sag is a form of grace, a yielding that looks like rest. When another piece of wood is lifted, water beads slipped and return to the needles beneath with the slightest pearl. Nothing is lost. The gathering remains gentle. The wooden nest grows a little, then a little more, and then not at all for a time. During the not at all, the lower back receives another layer of comfort. Perhaps the ground warming, perhaps the breath widening its circle of kindness. Warmth and darkness keep company without argument. The muted dark is not absence. It is cloth, and the warmth underneath it is a body-sized ember that never shows flame. The breath, steady as a pendulum slowed by thick air, finds a loop. The loop is easy to notice without looking for it, a roundness to each inhale that begins low, near the anchored muscles of the lower back, and lifts the belly as if floated from below. A crest that is not a crest, where inhalation pauses without pausing, a soft spillover into exhalation. Exhalation flows back down, moving the same path in reverse, leaving the muscles softer than it found them. The loop repeats. The loop becomes music that the chest remembers without needing a tune. Each cycle smooths the grain of thought as a hand smooths the surface of a wooden bowl, bringing out what is already there. The mind, if it has edges, feels those edges rounded, like stones in a riverbed. Peak and trough flatten into one gentle sway, and the world lengthens, stretches like a cat in the sun. Only here the sun is imagined warmth, and the stretch is a slow melting into support. Pieces of bark free from their former trunks are stacked beside the nest, not as walls, but as soft sides that hold the central pile in place. Their insides are pale, fibrous, faintly scented with the memory of sap. When laid against each other, they do not knock. They release a padded whisper, a sound that matches the wordless wish of this hour. Less, softer, slower. Beyond the hollow, the creek thickens its voice. Still quiet, still background, but perhaps more certain of its path. A crow far away makes a note, and then forgets its own idea. The forest's light becomes a shade lighter, and does not insist on being noticed. Inside the cave space, gathered wood looks like a poem without lines, arranged by intuition rather than pattern. The breath loop settles until it begins to run without supervision. The lower back holds the body the way a shore holds a bay, letting the tide enter and leave, staying, supporting, not needing acknowledgement. Here and there, a leaf falls, not from wind, but from the simple completion of its hold. It turns, once, or maybe that is imagined, and then rests where it lands. The landing is silent. Silence is not empty. It is a deep, blue pool where everything can soak. In T's pool, thoughts that would ordinarily ask for words simply absorb, and language becomes texture rather than speech. Wood in hand becomes wooded rest. Wooded rest becomes part of the slowly forming bundle. The bundle makes a center within the center. A hearth-shaped promise, though no flame is expected. Only the idea of warmth rising like breath from a place that honors it. The forest continues to keep itself, and keeping is a form of blessing. The hour continues to thicken with ease. A long, patient pause arrives. Knees ground. Weight settles. The lower back finds a tender expansion as though the very soil beneath had stretched to meet it. The breath loosens its measure and slides into wider bands of time, so that each in-breath might contain 3 smaller ones, or none at all, and each out-breath might carry a hush long enough to water the roots. In this expanded rhythm, tension forgets its habits. The small muscles along the spine uncurl. The pelvis floats in its own cradle. The belly becomes a shoreline, receiving the tide without effort. Attention notices these changes the way the forest notices twilight. It happens everywhere at once. It deepens by degrees. It invites birds to lower their voices, and leaves to still their palms. Gathering wood becomes the same as resting, and resting becomes the same as being held by the place. In the near distance, the first pale gray sheet of morning shows between trunks. The muted dark adopts it, holds it, dims it into a soft blend, so that nothing jars, nothing insists. The forest remains a room. The cave space remains a room within the room. The nest of wood becomes a sleeping animal of lines and curves. One last twig is lifted, not because it is necessary, but because its shape completes a feeling of roundness. When set down, the small almost sound it makes is the sound of consonants falling asleep. Breath follows. The lower back smiles in the way muscles smile. No expression, only release. The gentle drift breath rides its loop and empties into the hush, refeels from the hush, a circle nested within a larger circle, both moving without edge. As the loop steadies, the mind leans into the body the way vine leans into tree. Their boundaries blur. Warmth and muted dark blend like 2 threads in a single cloth. The forest's cradle becomes a sky-facing room with a soft roof of boughs and mist. In this room, the work of gathering is simply a seeding of elements. an arrangement of textures, a kindness shared between ground and hand and wood. No drama rises, no picots. Everything is a long horizon of ease. The breath is a tide on a beach of fir needles. The lower back is a worn stone warmed by a slow sun. The body is an ember banked in ash, safe and steady, glowing without display. Beyond this, there is only the forest, and the forest is the definition of calm. In a soft swell of this calm, the next phase begins without being named. The cave space deepens, as if the earth had drawn in a small breath, creating more room in its chest. The edges of perception soften until even the idea of edges feels like a memory of daylight. A small, steady vibration of comfort moves along the spine, announcing not an event, but a knowing. This is the right place, the held place, the place where wood gathers and warmth holds and time widens. Breathing continues its gentle drift, a loop so smooth it becomes fabric, a woven band that wraps the body in quiet. The nest of wood waits like a hymn with no words. The day waits outside like a friend who knows when to be silent. Inside, everything rests. The ground speaks through support. It says yes to wait. It says yes to softness. It says yes to the slower becoming of morning. Support drifts up from the soil into the small bones of the lower back, fitting shape to shape like river water fits riverbed. Breath answers with release. In-breath floats low and wide. Out-breath travels deeper, coasting down the back of the ribs, passing each vertebra with a light brush, a smooth farewell that promises return. The body's sense of boundary loosens, not to dissolve, but to widen. The forest enters as soft sound and scent, and inside that entering there is no requirement. Everything that has been gathered will remain. Nothing that is not needed will arrive. This is the hour's simple law, kind and sufficient, somewhere, very gently. The first thread of birdsong tests the air. It does not pierce. It lays itself over the hush like a scarf. The muted dark receives it and keeps it quiet. The warm haze carries it without letting it ring. Sound becomes texture. Texture becomes another layer of rest. The nest of wood holds its curve, a quiet bowl for a quiet fire that may never be lit, and that is fine. The act of gathering is complete for now, and completion feels like a deeper arrival in the same place. The cave space calm thickens into something that can be worn, like a cloak that weighs just enough to remind the shoulders they can lower. The lower back remains the anchor, and anchoring here feels like drifting. The paradox is gentle and needs no resolution. In this forest, in this hour, soft contradictions can lean against each other and fall asleep. The last of the night breathes out. Dawn breathes in. The exchange is so slow that it can be felt as a single sustained motion, a quiet bow drawn across a deep string. The note that results is the feeling of being settled. In this note, wood rests, breasts, back rests, mind rests. The forest holds all of it with impartial kindness, the way soil holds both roots and fallen leaves. Nothing is singled out. Nothing is demanded. The morning's light becomes a diluted ember in the high canopy, not seen so much as sensed. And the story that never began continues not as plot, but as presence. Presence that will carry forward into the next part of the hour, where breath will make its rounds, where the body will lean deeper into ease, where the forest will remain a patient witness to rest, and the wood will remain an emblem of warmth, even without flame. In this long exhale, the rhythm is set, slow, dim, warm. The drift breath finds its path and repeats it. The lower back settles and welcomes it. The cave space keeps its soft walls of slope and fallen trunk. The nest of wood is complete enough, which is the only enough that matters. Outside, the forest continues its patient, uncelebrated miracle. Inside, the hush grows a little heavier, like dusk laying down in reverse. Everything is ready for the deepening that comes next, for the body to release its last resistances, for breathing to become a tide within a tide, for the mind to learn the sensation of drifting without edge. The morning, still gentle and dim, nods at the doorway and remains there, agreeing to wait until all of this has unknotted and the hour has become entirely soft. The breath continues its patient work. Slow tide inward, slow tide outward, each movement rounded, seamless, indistinguishable from the next. The lower back hums faintly with warmth, the kind that comes not from exertion but from release. In tease, warmed muscles become threads of cloth laid flat, smoothing into the ground's acceptance. The muted dark around holds steady, neither deepening nor lifting, only existing as a kind of velvet distance. Somewhere above, the forest's canopy gathers the first threads of dawn like a blanket drawn closer. Nothing sharp, nothing bright, only the faint suggestion of gray folding into soft amber. The breath follows it unconsciously, rising a little higher in the chest, then sinking lower again, as if to remind the body of how vast rest can be. The gathered wood lies still, not as collection but as texture, a small landscape within the larger one. Its pieces are curved and smooth, some with a gentle flake of bark that catches scent more than sight. Resin rests beneath the surface, releasing a sweetness so light it might be imagined. Each piece breathes its own history into the air, the slow exhalation of seasons endured, rains absorbed, suns endured and released. Yet even this memory is quiet, folded under the present hush. The nest that holds them is neither neat nor careless. It exists the way the forest exists, by allowing things to find their own arrangement. If a hand were to touch it, it would not disturb, only meet softness, the long patience of wood that has learned to rest. Beyond the hollow, mist unwinds between trunks, like breath, uncoiling. From thought, the forest wears this mist as a kind of garment, translucent and gentle, moving only when air insists. The ground scent deepens with it, cool damp humus, blending with a low sweetness of rotted bark and pine. The scent is dark in tone, muted, steady, anchoring the senses. It fills the chest with quiet gravity, keeping the breath low, where the lower back can meet it and receive it like a slow tide. This is the part of the morning where warmth gathers inward, where nothing seeks light too quickly, where the forest's pulse can be felt more than heard. Small movements, a pine needle dropping, a ripple on unseen water, mark time without counting it. In the stillness, the idea of gathering continues, though the body no longer moves. Attention drifts among the shapes and scents and textures, gathering what the forest has already given in other forms. The hollow sigh of air through hollow wood, the mild rasp of bark beneath the mist, the nearly inaudible pulse beneath the soil where roots speak slowly to one another. These sounds and sensations fold together into a single feeling, soft and broad, like an endless cushion beneath all thought. It is enough to notice the way the breath's rhythm echoes this pattern, looping from chest to belly to back, rising and falling without plan. Each exhalation sinks further, as though the breath itself were laying down among the needles, finding its place among them. Time in the forest loosens. Moments no longer touch edge to edge. They blur, overlap, drift apart. What was a minute becomes a field of stillness wide enough for the mind to wander without moving. This is how the cave space deepens, not by walls closing, but by time softening. Sound loses outline, Touch becomes suggestion, warmth beneath the lower back pools, a soft glow diffused through layers of quiet tissue, spreading in slow circles until it feels as though the earth itself is exhaling through the body. Darkness remains, but it is no longer something apart. It is a comforter draped over thought. The muted dark does not conceal. It protects, enfolding each sense until all that remains is rhythm and rest. Somewhere, moisture beads along the lip of a fallen log. It gathers, slowly, trembling, then joins another droplet, their union silent. The surface below accepts them. The small sound of contact vanishes into the hush. Such tiny happenings filled the forest, each as important as any dawn. Together they compose the music of stillness, a composition played on absence, where every note is shaped by quiet air. The breath joins this symphony as the bass note beneath all others, its rhythm matching the unseen heart of the forest. Each inhalation rises like mist among trunks. Each exhalation returns like dew into soil. Nothing is forced. The loop completes itself, and the loop is everything. As the body continues to sink into its supported shape, the lower back feels broader, more open. The tension that once defined posture has dissolved, leaving behind only alignment, a slow equilibrium that breath maintains. Within this ease, thoughts lose their brightness, their edges softening until they resemble the shapes of wood resting in shadow. Ideas settle one upon another like leaves forming soil. This is the moment when gathering shifts from physical to inward, when what is collected are impressions, sensations, fragments of calm that build upon themselves into quiet fullness. The mind, soothed by repetition, lets go of needing to arrange them, and in this letting go, finds peace. The forest beyond remains unchanged, but somehow closer. Its silence presses gently at the edges of awareness, not intrusive, only reassuring. Each tree stands with infinite patience, carrying a private warmth within its core that matches the warmth in the spine. Between them, the air moves in wide, slow tides. The sound of that movement is almost like breathing long inhalations of leaves, long exhalations of calm. Everything mirrors everything else. The act of resting becomes the forest's act. The act of breathing becomes the world's own rhythm. In this symmetry, there is no longer separation between gatherer and gathered, between forest and body, between breath and breeze. The muted dark holds steady as morning thickens beyond it. Even as light begins to exist somewhere above, it arrives filtered through distance, softened to near invisibility. It is light remembered rather than seen. Its warmth reaches the forest floor as a gentle whisper, tracing the outlines of branches without illuminating them. The lower back feels this light before the eyes could, a faint lifting, a hint of release, as though gravity itself had relaxed. This is the warmth tone finding its fullness. Subtle haze meeting muted dark, blending into a single field of comfort that covers everything. Within it, thought slows further, trailing away into the rhythm of the breath loop. Now the breath becomes slower still. Perhaps only 4 cycles in a minute, maybe fewer. Each inhalation wide, continuous, low. Each exhalation a soft melting, a drift without end. Between them, silence, which is not pause but completion. In this silence, the heart beats with such evenness that it feels like part of the forest is this soil rhythm, not a separate pulse. The lower back glows faintly within, spreading relaxation through the hips, along the legs, up toward the ribs. A weightless warmth, moving as if guided by invisible hands, smoothing out the last remnants of effort. The mind watches this happening with the detachment of a cloud watching rain, calm, uninterested in distinction. The gathered wood, the cave space, the mist, the quiet, all continue without focus. backgrounding themselves until they become part of a single steady image too vast to grasp. The breath drifts through it like a current through silted water, slow enough that motion ceases to be noticed. The edges of perception dim. Only texture remains. The muted dark begins to feel infinite, not in distance, but in absence of end. The body becomes part of it, resting as if in suspension, buoyed by the softness of air and soil together. Warmth at the lower back becomes a central sun, dim and constant, radiating quiet assurance through everything it touches. Outside light touches the farthest edge of the forest canopy. It comes not as dawn breaking, but as dawn remembering to be gentle. Shafts of soft amber filtered down through layers of green shadow, bending, scattering, almost dissolving before reaching ground. They do not disturb the calm. They blend into it. The forest holds both darkness and light the way the mind now holds both wakefulness and drift. Each breath repeats the merging in wheat warmth, out wheat assy, in wheat calm out with release. The loop continues until even those distinctions fade. Breathing becomes simply existing. Existing becomes quietly drifting. At the border between awareness and rest, everything takes on the texture of haze. The cave space is no longer a place but a feeling. Enclosed yet endless. Cool, yet warmed by presence. The nest of wood, onset and hible, now seems to float, a pattern of soft lines traced upon the dim air. Time folds upon itself, in layers. The sense of sequence melts away. All that remains is continuity, the steady unfolding of comfort upon comfort. In this unfolding, the body finds its natural gravity, sinking deeper into rest, the spine following the long curve of the earth, the lower back perfectly balanced between firmness and give. This phase lingers. It could last moments or hours. The breath has ceased to count. In its slowness, it draws the senses inward, to a central point behind the navel, where warmth gathers in circles. Each exhalation releases that warmth outward, washing through the body in waves, so subtle they feel imagined. These waves are the language of deep rest. They carry quiet to every limb, dissolve the memory of effort. Around them, the muted dark becomes thicker, like soft velvet underwater. Sounds from the forest, a branch shifting, a drop falling echo through this softness as distant vibrations, reminders that stillness is alive. The breath loop continues, steady and unbroken, the rhythm of the entire forest condensed into the rise and fall of a single body at ease. The lower back holds it all, anchor and hearth. Warmth there deepens until it becomes indistinguishable from the earth's own heat. No boundary remains between what is human and what is ground. They share the same slow pulse, the same patient exhalation. This is drift. This is what follows gathering. The forest, having given its wood, now gives its silence. And in that gift, sleep approaches without announcement, without threshold. The body, the forest, the breath. One continuum of soft movement through time. In teased drift, awareness becomes diffuse. Thoughts dissolve into shapes like mist between trees. Sensations spread outward, wide and low, touching everything lightly, claiming nothing. The world narrows to tone and rhythm, dark and warm breath and release. Warm thickens behind the spine. Darkness folds above and below. The air itself seemed to pulse gently, as though inhaling through the listener, exhaling through the soil. All boundaries blur, all distances flatten. The forest ceases to be setting and becomes sensation, endless and without edge. Breathing continues somewhere far away, steady and slow, a faint music that hums beneath the horizon of thought. The body floats between moments, half remembered, half dreamed, The nest of Gatha would glows faintly within imagination, a soft constellation of shapes, each piece a small sun folded in bark. Their combined warmth spreads across the ground, reaching the soles, the spine, the back of the skull. The warmth is memory and promise, comfort and release. As it spreads, the muted dark becomes a field, wide and endless, where every breath lands like a feather and vanishes. This is the drift without direction, rest without goal. Even the thought of breathing is enough to keep it steady. Even the idea of warmth sustains it. Outside, the sun is climbing somewhere beyond sight. But here, beneath the canopy, morning remains a whisper. It will always be this gentle here. Always dawn. Always still gathering, even when nothing moves. The forest carries its own clock, and that clock runs slow. So slow that hours become soft rings, expanding through quiet. The body joins it, breath synced to this ancient rhythm. Every inhale, the taking in of calm. Every exhale, a yielding into dark. Warmth beneath the back continues to pulse, low and wide. A reminder that rest is deep enough to hold all things, even dreams not yet dreamt. This deepening continues, a gentle gradient that invites the body to fall further. The breath grows lighter now, almost transparent. The muted dark thickens, but kindly, wrapping each thought in dusk. The warmth at the core diffuses, filling every space with calm weightlessness. Nothing more is needed. Nothing more happens. There is only this. Air moving in soft tides, warmth humming low in the back, darkness quiet as soil. The forest breathes, the body breathes. The world breathes. The forest deepens again, not darker, only denser, softer. Its silence layered and slow. Each breath now feels like it arrives from far away, carried across great distances of still air, touching the body with weightless care before dissolving. Warmth continues to flow beneath the lower back, an ember that needs no tending. It expands outward in slow circles, each one gentler than the last, fading into the surrounding quiet. The muted dark folds closer, not as shadow but as presence. A hushed companion that smooths the edges of thought until everything feels round and whole. Nothing remains to be done. Everything has found its place in this stillness. The wood, gathered earlier, rests undisturbed in its small nest of moss and bark. Its scent remains faint and pleasant, an echo of resin and rain, of soil touched by years. From its surface rises a soft heat, more remembered than felt, a lingering trace of sun long past. It fills the hollow with calm gravity, holding warmth near the ground where the breath draws it in quietly, cycle after cycle. The air moves in patterns too wide to notice, spiraling among the trunks and fading before it reaches the open sky. This is the hour where forest and breath share the same slow rhythm, where everything alive participates in the same long inhalation, the same endless exhalation. A thread of wind passes through, its motion slower than a thought. It barely lifts the mist that still hovers low among the roots. Yet even that small movement seems like an entire event in this silence. The mist drifts, parts, reforms. Each motion is unhurried, more like sighing than shifting. When it brushes the wood, the surface darkens slightly, drinking in the moisture with quiet acceptance. Beneath the touch of this air, bark glows faintly, the warmth of earlier sun returning for a brief moment, blending with the body's own heat, traveling inward through scent and memory. Every breath now carries a taste of earth and faint sweetness, each exhale returning it to the still world, unchanged. In this deep phase, The body seems to lose edges altogether. The line between ground and skin dissolves. The lower back, once aware of its own release, now feels like soil itself, dense, steady, alive with unseen movement. The warmth there spreads slowly upward. Into te reaves the shoulders, the base of the skull. Its texture remains smooth, like water warmed from beneath, without boundaries or pulse. It holds and hums, and through that hum, the breath finds a deeper pace. In-breath and out-breath merge. The difference between them fades until it feels like a single continuous current. This is the gentle drift, the slow tide of air that neither begins nor ends. Somewhere in the forest, a faint creaking sound ripples through the trunks, the language of wood adjusting to morning's softness. It hakus, onse, then disappears into distance. It is not loud, yet it shapes the silence around it, giving it dimension, reminding the body of vastness, even as it rests in stillness. The muted dark accepts the sound easily, folds it in like another layer of air. The body mirrors this acceptance, the spine following the slow curvature of the ground, the lower back releasing any final tension that might have lingered. This small surrender deepens the feeling of belonging. Belonging not to a place, but to calm itself. A single ray of light arrives now. Not bright, not golden, but pale and gentle as smoke. It moves through the canopy in slow fragments, broken by leaves, filtered by mist, softened until it has no sharpness. Where it touches the gathered wood, it warms rather than lights, bringing the faint gleam of resin to life again. This warmth is brief, yet the memory of it remains, diffused through the air like a sigh that never fades. In this dim light, the forest appears to be breathing, trunks expanding slightly with moisture, branches bowing under dew, the earth itself exhaling steam to light to sea. Everything participates in the same rhythm, including the breath that continues without awareness. A movement both inside and outside at once. The scent of pine deepens. It is not sharp, but rounded, dark at the edges, heavy with calm sweetness. Breathing it in feels like drinking warmth through air, a sensation that moves directly to the lower back, anchoring the body further into rest. The exhale follows like smoke curling upward, fading through the chest, through the forest's canopy, disappearing where sky meets mist. The exchange is slow, infinite, unending. This is the body's conversation with the world unspoken, wordless, kind. Each cycle reinforces the connection. Grun to bike, bike to breath. To forest, forest to stillness. The ground beneath carries faint vibrations, the kind that come not from steps or movement, but from the slow heartbeat of roots pushing deeper into soil. These pulses are imperceptible, yet present, a low resonance that travels upward, meeting the lower back, joining with its steady warmth. When the two meet, they form a quiet chord, deep and sustaining, the sound of complete rest. Intouched thoughts dissolve entirely. Memory softens, expectation fades. Only the rhythm remains, endless, patient, circling within itself like wind in a closed valley. Now the forest's colors begin to change again, almost invisibly. Where there was only muted dark, there is now muted amber, a hue that carries the same tone but a little more openness. The edges of the nest of wood appear softer still, their contours blending into the haze like shapes seen through water. Even time seems to share this texture, its moments diffused and slow, one blending into the next until continuity replaces sequence. This slow continuity allows the body to drift deeper, its awareness expanding sideways rather than forward. as though rest itself had become an ocean with no surface, no bottom, only warmth and darkened breath. The cave space, that gentle hollow of the earth, remains a constant, though its boundaries shift with perception. It feels wider now, filled with the quiet hum of unseen life, the faint crackle of roots, the small drip of unseen water, the sound of air curling through moss. All of it blends into the same pulse, a living hush that holds the sleeper like soil holds a seed. The lower back continues as anchor, still glowing, still soft, its comfort spreading outward in waves that ripple through the body, each wave slower than the one before, each carrying the mind further from waking thought. The breath is now a whisper, then a trace of movement, then simply the sensation of drifting without edge. The forest outside does not demand awakening. Its dawn is timeless, its light eternal in its restraint. It does not increase or brighten. It lingers at the same softness, holding the world between night and day, between being and rest. This is the hour that never passes, the pause between inhalation and exhalation stretched into forever. In that space, warmth holds the body completely. Darkness wraps it gently. Breath becomes the only motion. This is drift, full and deep, where even the thought of self begins to dissolve into the calm landscape of sound and shadow and slow air. A gentle hum arises from somewhere unseen, perhaps the meeting of wind and branch, perhaps the vibration of water beneath the soil. It resonates in the body like an answer to a question never asked. It deepens the relaxation at the lower back, as though every vertebra has found its rightful distance, its natural rest. That hum continues, faint but steady, blending with the breath until it feels internal, a vibration of being rather than of sound. Through it, the body and the forest align completely, two aspects of the same rhythm, inseparable, indistinct. The warmth is steady, the darkness absolute, the drift infinite. In T-state, nothing begins or ends. The breath continues because it must, not as effort, but as belonging. Each inhalation rises like mist between ancient trunks. Each exhalation falls like ash, settling on cool soil. The lower back remains the quiet hearth of this whole stillness, radiating warmth that has no center, no direction, only expansion. This warmth touches everything: the air, the ground, the unseen horizon where night and dawn overlap and everything answers by remaining calm. The body has become the forest. The forest has become the breath, and rest has become the only reality that matters. The wood, once gathered, now seems part of this same pulse. It no longer lies in a pile. It drifts within the haze, every piece absorbed into the rhythm. The air smells faintly of resin and shadow, the kind of scent that feels older than memory. It fills the lungs without weight, leaving behind only stillness. Outside, light might be growing, but here it does not intrude. It softens further, thinning into transparency, a veil over an already sleeping world. Warmth, darkness, and air form the triad of calm, each feeding the others, each completing the breath loop in silence. A deeper layer of quiet arrives. Thoughts no longer move at all. The breath slows to 3, maybe 2, movements per minute. The lower back sinks deeper into the soil's unseen warmth. There is no more sense of effort, only being held, entirely, endlessly. In this suspension, the forest's rhythm continues, slow and circular, repeating without change. The muted dark becomes absolute, but never heavy. It supports rather than hides. The body floats within it, each breath widening the stillness rather than disturbing it. The world feels infinite in this softness, every boundary erased by warmth. This is the space between breaths, extended into eternity. Here, drift turns to fade, not as disappearance, but as blending the body blending into forest. Forest blending into silence. Silence blending into the very texture of sleep. Warmth from the lower back radiates one last time, expanding until it fills the entire inner field, dissolving even the sense of body. The muted dark accepts it all, absorbs it, holds it gently, endlessly. There is no more separation, no more rhythm, only calm spreading outward through everything, like a ripple that never ends. The air is slower now, dense with calm, a kind of silence that hums rather than rests. Each breath passes through it as if through silk, smooth and continuous, each exhale meeting the next inhale without pause. Warmth remains steady at the lower back, not bright, not vivid, but wide and constant, the kind that feels like a quiet river beneath the body. It supports everything, carries the weight effortlessly, as though the ground itself were breathing with the sleeper. The muted dark continues its work, softening the edges of perception, thickening the calm until it becomes tangible, something to drift through rather than to observe. Above, branches lean toward one another, forming slow, arching shapes that might once have been seen as cathedral vaults. But now they are simply extensions of rest. Light has reached them, yet it stays subdued, scattered through thin mist, refracted into warmth instead of glare. It filters down in soft waves that tremble slightly, stirring only the upper air. None of it touches sharply. What light there is enters like a sigh and fades almost immediately, absorbed by the forest's breath. This pale illumination has no purpose. It exists only to remind the eyes that the world continues even when unseen. The wood that lies in the hollow holds this light faintly. Along its grain, a subdued glow moves like water. It breathes with the rhythm of the forest, expanding imperceptibly with each inhalation of air, contracting with each release. Its scent has grown deeper now. Pine, resin, and faint sweetness of rot mingling into a tone so soft it can only be felt, not smelled. As it seeps into the breath, it carries the mind further inward, down into the slow warmth behind the spine, down into the space where the breath's sound no longer reaches. This descent is effortless, not a falling but a sinking, as though gravity has become silk, drawing everything toward its own center of quiet. The forest beneath this awareness stretches endlessly. What once were separate trunks are now a single living mass, connected by threads unseen. The slow lattice of roots and mycelium that hum beneath the soil. The body listens to this hum, its own pulse slowing to match. The lower back vibrates with it faintly, each breath deepening the harmony between inner and outer. Warmth moves with this vibration, spiraling upward along the spine, dispersing at the shoulders, then returning down again, a loop of heat and release that never stops, never begins. The muted dark holds all of it, a wide chamber where even the smallest motion sounds eternal. Time continues to stretch until it no longer functions as time. Moments are not counted but felt as waves of sensation passing through the dark, each wave softer than the one before, until even the idea of before and after dissolves. In this stretched interval, the forest feels infinite. Sounds occur, yet none stand apart from the stillness. A leaf falling, water slipping from rock, the faint breath of wind across needles. All are variations of the same single tone, the world's long exhale. That tone vibrates through the bones, through the low warmth that anchors them, through the breath that rises in slow ribbons from the chest. The scent of the forest thickens again, not sharp, never awakening, but like the interior of aged wood, a dry, sweet, quiet. It fills the lungs with the sense of something ancient and endless, something that has no source. Each inhalation brings more of it, wrapping the senses in calm. Each exhalation releases the body deeper into the ground, dissolving resistance. The lower back has become indistinguishable from the earth. It hums with its same steady temperature, its same patient rhythm. Even thought, if it arises, seems to emerge from that depth rather than from mind, a faint pulse of awareness drifting upward and then melting away. Mist gathers again, curling low around the forest floor, sliding between roots and fallen trunks. It moves with a pace so slow it resembles thought half remembered. The air grows cooler, but the warmth within the body answers, maintaining balance. This meeting of cool and warm creates a sensation like being wrapped, the soft contrast of temperature, making stillness more complete. Breath adjusts, without decision, shallower, longer, quieter. Each inhale becomes the barest sip of air. Each exhale, a long surrender, disappearing into the soil. In that exchange, everything unnecessary leaves. Tension, noise, memory, expectation. What remains is only being wide and quiet. The world outside this awareness fades almost entirely. Even the forest's faint light becomes abstraction, a suggestion rather than a presence. Sound recedes into texture. Texture becomes feeling. Feeling becomes rest. The body no longer knows whether it is lying upon earth or floating within it. All directions blur. Only the slow pulse of breath maintains orientation. This pulse feels circular, orbiting the lower back, circling outward, returning inward, an infinite motion in finite space. It continues by its own design, without effort, without witness, a perfect equilibrium of warmth, darkness, and air. A faint drizzle begins somewhere far above. Not rain, but condensation slipping from leaves. A slow patter that never gathers into rhythm. The sound reaches through layers of mist, dampens before it meets the ground. Each drop that falls lands softly upon bark, upon moss, upon soil already saturated with quiet. The air thickens with moisture, scent deepens further. The muted dark grows tender and cool. The warmth within the body glows, in contrast, steady and internal, not rising, not fading, only being. These two sensations, the cool dark and the deep warmth, balance one another perfectly, creating the sense of an endless dusk held inside the skin. Breathing narrows to almost nothing, perhaps only the motion of air through nostrils. Perhaps only the thought of motion. Yet within that smallness, there is vastness. Each breath seems to encompass the entire forest, as though the lungs had expanded to fill the horizon. Inhalation gathers the night's quiet. Exhalation releases it into dawn's waiting light. The two merge into continuity, and continuity becomes rest. The lower back remains the quiet anchor at the center of it all, radiating calm through stillness, steady as stone, tender as soil after rain. Now, even the concept of body begins to fade. Warmth no longer feels localized. It belongs to the space itself. The muted dark is no longer an exterior. It has entered, filled every hollow, replaced thought with hush. The breath becomes invisible, inaudible. Yet its rhythm remains known in some deeper sense, like a tide moving under ice. It continues to pull the world inward and release it outward, an eternal exchange between form and emptiness. Each cycle dissolves more of what was separate, until everything rests in the same smooth field of sensation. Quiet, weightless, infinite. Through that field, faint currents drift. Traces of soundless wind moving between trunks. Small vibrations of unseen wings. Distant whispers of leaves. All of it is gentle enough to lull even the idea of wakefulness into sleep. The forest, ancient and patient, continues to hold this hour between two worlds. Not night, not day, but something endless, suspended. Within it, the nest of wood remains, perfectly still, perfectly gathered, its purpose complete, its energy folded back into the ground. It radiates faint warmth that mingles with the body's own, an unseen communion between earth and breath. Time, already blurred, now dissolves completely. What remains is movement without motion, thought without words, warmth without flame. The body floats through layers of quiet, deeper and deeper, until even the notion of depth disappears. This is not falling asleep, but becoming sleep itself. The state where the forest and the self are the same vibration, the same tone held endlessly. The lower back glows faintly in this space, not as muscle or bone, but as a small sun, hidden and kind, illuminating nothing, sustaining everything. Outside the canopy, dawn continues, but here beneath it, the forest remains eternal twilight. No need to rise, no need to wake. Breath continues as the single remaining movement, the thread that holds the world together. In and out, in and out. Each cycle slower, deeper, dissolving into the next until there is no longer sequence, only presence. Warmth steadies, darkness deepens, breath fades into itself. All becomes one slow, infinite drift. The drift continues without change. Every breath is a ripple. Every ripple fades before it reaches the next. The forest listens, and the body listens in return. Nothing stirs now but the smallest motions of mist, soft loops of air that move like thought drifting across the edge of dream. Warmth rests low behind the spine, a pool of comfort that glows gently, expanding and contracting with the rhythm of unseen tides. It anchors without holding, supports without weight. This quiet center is the pulse of the world, the silent rhythm beneath every living thing. The muted dock folds closer, velvet upon velvet, each layer deeper, each layer more tender. Even the air has thickness now, a substance that holds, that carries the faint scent of resin and damp earth. Breath passes through it slowly, so slowly that time seems to bow beneath its pace. Each inhalation enters like a tide touching shore, gentle, familiar, inevitable. Each exhalation slips away, smoothing everything it touches. This is the rhythm of infinite calm, the slow pulse that sustains rest beyond waking, beyond thought. The forest has become infinite in its stillness. Trunks stand like memory, patient and kind, their branches tracing slow arcs through air that no longer belongs to morning or night. What light exists is the faintest warmth, more felt than seen. The color of honey diluted into mist, it rests across bark and moss, spreading an even tone that erases shadow. The world is no longer made of objects, only of textures of calm, wood, moss, air, warmth, darkness, all merging into a single field that breath can travel through endlessly. The lower back hums within it, a single quiet ember glowing beneath the surface of everything. Far beyond, perhaps at the forest's edge, a stream moves. The sound is distant, filtered through countless trunks, reaching the ear as memory rather than noise. Its rhythm matches the breath perfectly, A whisper forward, a sigh backward. A pattern so old it feels like the first sound the earth ever made. The body receives it without reaction, without recognition, only absorption. Each sound wave becomes another layer of rest, another thread in the woven calm surrounding everything. The forest, the stream, the body, all one continuous exhale. Within this continuity, warmth deepens again, not be reseen, but by spreading outward until it no longer feels confined. It reaches through the ribs, the shoulders, the arms, down the legs, filling the spaces between breath and stillness. The entire form becomes a vessel of quiet heat, glowing invisibly beneath the muted dark. This warmth carries no urgency. It simply is, a silent assurance that nothing is needed. It fills the hollow at the base of the spine, meets the breath, and together they drift. Each cycle of inhalation and exhalation is slower than before, drawn long and thin like threads of silk unspooling into water. A hush thicker than silence settles over the forest. Birds, if they exist, remain asleep. Wind has no reason to move. The forest's heart slows to the same rhythm as the breath. Everything now functions as one body. The earth breathing through its roots, the mist exhaling through its folds, the wood gathering light and releasing it as warmth. This shared rhythm vibrates softly through the lower back, as though the body were part of an ancient chord sustained for centuries. No beginning, no end, only the soft persistence of being held. The air feels heavier now, not oppressive, but tenderly dense, as if filled with unseen threads of warmth and quiet sound. Each inhalation gathers these threads, drawing them inward. Each exhalation releases them back into the world. The motion is circular, endless, slow. The muted dark seems to glow faintly now from within, its color deepening to something between amber and gray. It feels alive, and within that aliveness, the body floats like a leaf resting on calm water. Everything below is warmth. Everything above is quiet. The balance is complete. The sense of forest begins to dissolve into something more abstract, more infinite. Trunks become columns of calm. Air becomes distance without measure. Light becomes soundless breath. The body, once separate, merges fully with the space. It is both center and horizon, both weight and weight. The lower back remains the last recognizable point, a quiet anchor glowing faintly, guiding the rest of the self toward dissolution. Around it, warmth folds and refolds, waves of softness rolling through muscle and bone, smoothing every remnant of thought. The breath, now nearly motionless, continues its infinite loop without beginning or end. Somewhere, faintly, the memory of sunrise returns. Not light, but the idea of it. The soft recognition that day exists somewhere beyond this dim chamber of rest. It approaches without intrusion, dissolving before it arrives. The forest remains in its perpetual half-light, an eternal morning that never needs to complete itself. The body responds not with awakening but with deeper surrender, as though the idea of dawn has reminded it how to fall further into stillness. Warmth gathers once more, darker now, deeper, as if the earth itself were exhaling through the body's core, filling it from within. Breathing becomes almost imperceptible. Only the faint expansion of space within the chest, the soft release that follows. The pause between the two is vast, yet not empty. It is filled with the hum of distant quiet, the subtle vibration of being alive and at rest at once. That hum extends through the forest, through the soil, through the gathered wood that lies nearby, through every part of existence that remains soft enough to listen. It is the hum of continuity, of presence without awareness, and within it sleep begins to deepen beyond even dream. Now the boundaries between sound and silence dissolve. What once were distinct sensations, the faint rustle of air, the imagined trickle of water, the heartbeat felt in the lower back, all merge into a single tone. This tone is endless, low, and soft, the resonance of calm itself. It vibrates through the spine, expands into the breath, fades outward into the air, returning again, looping like the breath does, infinite and complete. The muted dark no longer feels external. It is the substance of thought, of body, of air. Every particle within it glows faintly, as if made of slow fire seen through fog. This is the beginning of the fade, the point where drift becomes dissolution, where rest becomes quiet beyond rest. Warmth still pulses gently through the lower back, but even that sensation begins to stretch thin, to blur at the edges. It spreads too far to be contained, filling the entire space until inside and outside are indistinguishable. The breath follows it, fading into length so vast it no longer feels like breathing at all, only the movement of existence itself. In this expansion, everything merges. Body with ground, ground with sky, breath with air, thought with silence. The forest remains endless, still, whole, a vast cradle of calm that rocks itself. No wind, no motion, only the low hum of life resting in perfect balance. The warmth remains steady, radiating outward in rings that have no end. The muted dark folds these rings into its infinite body, absorbing them gently until nothing remains separate. Even the idea of sound fades, replaced by the texture of quiet, thick and luminous as dusk. Breath continues, somewhere distant and small. It's a rhythm lost in the rhythm of the forest. The world has become sleep. The forest has become breath. The breath has become warmth, and warmth has become everything. At these depths, the body no longer dreams. It drifts within layers of calm too vast for thought. Time has no meaning, only softness remains. The warmth behind the spine glows faintly, then slowly disperses until it is everywhere, until it becomes the quiet temperature of the world itself. Darkness deepens once more, not heavy but endless, folding the sleeper into the silence beneath all sound. The final breath merges with the hush, and the hush with the forest, and the forest with the infinite warmth that holds it all. Drifting without edge, drifting without sound, drifting without end.